Hey everyone, my name is Yarrow and you're listening to the DIY Business Podcast. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to bring you another interview episode. This time I'm speaking to Lilly Garcia about flexible branding and why it's not all bullshit. I really love this conversation because I'm thinking about this all the time. Like, can we even reclaim branding? How can it be more simple and playful and beautiful? And I feel that Lily had some really awesome ideas and practical tools about these things. And I know you're telling me all the time that it feels overwhelming and you don't know quite where to start. And, there's also this sense of ickiness of like not wanting to be like those big manipulative brands, but instead to find a way of communicating what you're about and what you're offering in a just really authentic and fair and beautiful way. And so I really hope that this conversation gives you some ideas around that. I also want to say sorry, there's a slight rustling sound on my end in the first kind of 10 minutes or so. I don't know what caused this, and I will be more careful next time. I try to edit it out as much as I can, but you might still hear it a bit. But I think it's really worth tuning in anyway because it's a cool conversation and it does get a little bit less rustly towards the middle of the podcast. So yeah, I hope you'll enjoy that. One small announcement from me, the giveaway for the DIY Business Collective is running for another 2 days. So if you're listening pretty quickly, you can still enter. I'm giving away a lifetime spot for the DIY Business Collective, which is worth $220 and 5 hours of mentoring with me, which is really exciting. And then also on Thursday, August 1st, the DIY Business Collective is officially opening for enrollment. So this is kind of the next stage or evolution of the DIY Business School that I've been running for a year. And I've been listening to what you need more of, what you already loved, and I've added a bunch of things. So it's now a 10 module video training, and there's monthly group coaching calls, there's monthly live workshops, weekly journaling prompts, and then quarterly business planning workshops, as well, of course, the community over on Mighty Network. So I really enjoy being off Facebook and creating community there. It feels like a really supportive, non-competitive, nurturing space in which we can, ask questions and just be in community with like-minded business owners. Lifetime access is going to be on sale from August 1st to the 10th. So you have plenty of time to figure out if this is for you. You can ask me questions, either email me or comment on Instagram. I'll be sharing over there as well. And it's going to cost $220 until August 10th. And that is lifetime access for the duration of the program, which I'm really intending for many years to come because it's awesome and just the biggest joy that I've had in my business so far to facilitate this community. So yeah, if you want a little bit more support, some training, but also some accountability and inspiration and being with other people, then I think you might want to check that out. Thank you so much for listening. Hey everyone. Honestly, I say this all the time, but I'm so excited for this guest because I said I was going to bring you more conversations with small business owners who have similar values and interesting stories to tell. And sometimes, lucky me, they reach out to me and they're like, hey, do you want to talk? That's what Lilly Garcia did. So I'm really excited to talk to her today. We will dive into branding and why we think it matters and why we sometimes also think it sucks, and what we imagine radical branding could look like. So I know lots of you guys are interested in these subjects too. I hear from you all the time that you get stuck, you're excited about colors and fonts and all of that. You like hanging out in creative market, but then also there's sometimes a point where it feels icky and you don't want to be like those people. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Lily, thank you so much for being here. Can you begin by telling us who you are, what you're doing, and where you are in the world?
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation. And so everybody already knows my name is Lilly Garcia. Right now I'm calling myself a flexible brand designer. And yeah, I help. This is a little hard for me because it's something I'm leaning into, but I help radical change makers make make their businesses match what they're about, make the outward presentation of their businesses match what they're about, and communicate in a way that is true to who they are and also resonates with the people they are trying to reach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That's so needed. Something that I also want everyone to know about you is that you got a really cool sticker notes game going on, because people can't see it, but I can. I'm just like, this person really is knowing something about color coordination and taking notes.
I love color. And it's funny, the first iteration of my brand had no color. It had like white and green. And part of my rebranding myself was realizing like, wait, I actually really love color and I'm really good at color. Like, why did I do this to myself? I felt like I put myself in this like white and green box and I wasn't allowed any other colors, and it was crushing me. So now I have all the colors and I feel much happier.
Great, that's great. Can you tell us where you are in the world so we can kind of, know?
Yeah, I'm in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and I feel like I have to acknowledge this is occupied Kalapuya land, and I'm here as a guest. It's gorgeous here, and I don't know, just looking outside, I can't help but think of the people who this land was taken from.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's that. Yeah, I was gonna apologize for the heaviness, but I'm like, no, the heaviness.
No. That's it's fine. That's just what it is. The truth.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cool. So the next thing I would love to ask is what you're most excited about at the moment. That could be in life, in your work. It could be sticky note.
Yeah. So I'm really, well, there's two things. I'm really excited about moving. That's like on the personal side of things. I'm looking to relocate with my little family and move down to Southern California, which is where I grew up and where it feels like home. And so hoping that happens really soon. And then I'm also really excited about flexible branding. Like, I feel like it's a concept that I stumbled upon just doing my own rebrand. And now, like, I've been testing it out with a few clients, and now I'm like ready to go all in on it. So I'm super excited to kind of be more, just own more of that and live in the flexible branding space more fully. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. How exciting. Cool. I would love to know how you got into this kind of work. Did you grow up just loving colors and shapes and forms and compositions, or is that something that came into your life later as you were older?
You know, I used to think it was in a later in life thing, and then I remembered the first business I ever had was in the first grade. And I don't know, growing up, as a kid, I always wanted to fill out a check. Like, I would see my parents filling out checks from their checkbooks and like tearing them out, and I just so badly wanted to fill out a check and they wouldn't let me. So then I realized, like, oh, I can make my own checks, and I started making like my own little check designs out of notebook paper, and then my friends wanted them, so I started selling them too. So I guess I've been a designer for a while. Yeah, like it never, the way I see design anyway is like it lives somewhere between strategy and art. So I don't consider myself necessarily an artist, but I do have a lot of like those artistic, I don't know, just like a knack for like things like color and layout and balance, and kind of bringing that together with strategy is what like keeps me excited about design. And I think what makes me good at it too, like I'm not just kind of creating something pretty. I like to create things that communicate and that say something and that, I don't know, have like a goal to them and work.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I would love to talk a little bit more about how we could maybe possibly reclaim branding in some way. And I was just saying to you before we started recording that I was reading on your blog and I loved your thoughts. And you were sharing this one piece, for example, where a brand kind of rebranded itself and then charged influencers $700 for a pair of shoes that I think was normally like 30 or something. Can you maybe tell us that story and expand a little bit on what you currently find really allowing about branding and what you wish for it?
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. So this story came out like last holiday season. It was this shoe retailer's holiday campaign, and it sparked something for me, but it took me months and months to like get it into words. But basically here in the US, Payless is this it's a shoe store that is known for selling just cheap shoes. And you know, I don't know, my parents would take me there to buy like shoes for a wedding, right? Like when I was a kid. And so that's just kind of like what they're known for. It's not like super fancy or, you know, shoes that are gonna like last you a big long time. So for the holidays, they rebranded themselves as like a very high-end, exclusive, like invite only shoe store. And they invited all these Instagram influencers to come and like see their store. Which is like set up to look like, I don't know, just like it reminds me so much of Las Vegas. And I lived in Las Vegas for a long time, and it just feels like this like very opulent, high-end place. And so they just kind of like, you know, recorded these influencers talking about their shoes. They're like $20 shoes that you can buy at whatever strip mall. And these, you know, these very wealthy appearing people are just like being so poetic about how beautiful the shoes are, and yeah, paying like hundreds of dollars for these $20 shoes. Which for me, like, I was cracking up at the rich people, right? Because I feel like that was kind of like what the ad was trying to do. It was like, you know, oh, like, you wise, you know, not so rich people buy from us and get a good deal, while like the rich people right can't even tell. And so we get to like laugh at them because they're rich, and it's fun to laugh at rich people, I guess. And so yeah, like, I don't know, I spent obviously like months kind of like thinking about this whole campaign, and how just by like rebranding the store and creating like a whole different experience, you know, they gave themselves a new name, obviously a new logo to go with that, but also kind of like the actual space and what the store looked like was also completely rebranded. And I'm like, they were able to pull this off just by branding, right? Just by switching up their logo to look less, I don't know, just to look a lot more polished. And that was really like the biggest thing. It felt like, well, you can sell the same shoes for like, I don't know how, I can't do math right now, but for a lot more. It just because like the logo looks different, just because, you know, the store looks different, and even though it's the same exact shoe. And I feel like that's what branding does a lot of the time, right? Under capitalism, it's really just something that's used to manipulate us into thinking that something is worth more than it actually is. And so a lot of the people that I talk to feel weird about branding because of that. And, because it is so often just kind of like a facade, like a mask that you put on something, whether it's good or not, to get people to think that it's right for them, to get people to act on that feeling of, whatever. So yeah, I feel like I kind of lost my train of thought there and I lost track of your
No.
question, but
No, yeah, that makes so much sense. I would love to expand on that too. So I was asking um, if and how you think we could maybe reclaim branding, and then I was saying, what do you think is currently really annoying about it? And then I thought we could, tell the story of those shoes. And I love that story. It's a really good illustration, I think, and I totally agree with you. I feel so often just tricked by branding, and it feels manipulative and just like it's trying to get under my skin, literally. And I think
Mhm.
what I wish, but I think at the same time, I'm like you, someone who really loves colors and shapes and creating experiences that communicate something that makes sense. So I think for me, good branding on a website, for example, I don't do any offline design, to be honest. I'm kind of like completely on the internet. And for some reason, this is a funny side note, but I find it really hard to design any brand print stuff, like be it business cards or flyers or something that just kind of like my brain is like, but it's not on the internet. So anyway, that's just as a side note. So I don't usually do that. But I think for me, good branding, when someone comes to a site, I want the right people to feel like they're home there, they're accepted, this is for them. It speaks to them in the colors that they like, and it creates an atmosphere that kind of resonates with the work, I guess. And I think there's so much cultural understanding of different colors, for example, or what the sharpness of letters can mean and communicate, or the softness of them. And sometimes that's really gendered, which really sucks, and sometimes it's not. But I think I just really could never fully dismiss branding just because it's currently a very central and very oppressive tool within capitalism, because it also has these really beautiful aspects to it that I think are really important, of like we're finding each other in a way, because we're like different hummingbirds vibrating on different frequencies, and like all flowers. And so there's just like coming to your side, for example, it was really beautiful. I was like, oh yeah, this is my kind of person, and I would like to speak to you, and I'm interested in what you have to say. And I think that we often underestimate, when we completely reject branding, also that the fact that we communicate so much beyond words. Like text
Mm.
is great, and text is important. Like I really love creative writing, and I teach journaling, and this is all really important to me. But I think we are sensory and sensual beings, and
Mhm.
there has to be experiences beyond just the written word in black and white. And so yeah, I just don't want to let go of that, even if I'm really pissed off by branding about
Yeah, for a while, I seriously, very seriously thought about giving up branding because I couldn't make sense of it, right? And I had this experience. So I have family who lives in Las Vegas, which is, I know, not like normal, but I went down to Las Vegas to visit my mom, and I'm, kind of doing like a little bit of the touristy thing. And I had my 4-year-old with me, and my kiddo, gets thirsty and wanted some water. So I go into a shop just to get a bottle of water, and I end up paying like $7 for a bottle of water, which I don't know, to me just feels ridiculous. I was so upset, but I also like needed to get water to my kid. So, in my head, I'm like, this is only $7 because I'm in Las Vegas and like the store looks kind of fancy, but it's just water, right? Like it makes no sense. And so yeah, for me, I was like, what am I doing in this industry that so many times is just about that, right? Like how much money can we get out of people for this really basic thing? just by making it look fancy. And it happens with online business too, right? Like all these coaches and people, nothing against I love coaches so much. But it's so much of the advice that gets tossed around in that space is about like about creating this like feel of authority, right? And how do you position yourself as an authority figure and get people to trust you and believe what you say? And a lot of that happens with branding, right? With like what your photos look like, what your website looks like do you look close enough to Marie Forleo or not? And yeah, that's the part that is so, so icky. And that really had me questioning whether I could do this anymore. But, you know, you hit on some really, really, some of the things that kept me in branding and that I get really excited about. And I had this like tiny bit of information that for some reason like stuck with me since design school. And I remember in my history of graphic design course, which is a thing, like we learned that the first example of a logo comes from Mesopotamia, which I was like, I just find that so freaking fascinating that logos have been around since like the dawn of civilization. And we've been, you know, and like if you look at like the basic elements of graphic design, that stuff has been around since, you know, we were painting in caves, and really probably before that. And so really like these tools are ours and they've always been ours. Color and words and fonts and all of that, like it doesn't belong to capitalism. It is so much older than capitalism. And I think at its core, design is actually just about communication. And like you said, like finding each other and creating those spaces where there's like that, yeah, that connection and that resonance for the right people. And that's, I mean, that's what I see branding being. Like outside of capitalism, I see it actually being a tool that belongs to us, belongs to the people, because no one can take communication away from us. No one can take art away from us. And we just, you know, we can reclaim it and use it for actually connecting with each other, like on a real level, not just to try to convince each other that we're, I don't know, authority, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I feel you in everything you just said. And also I just wanted to add like a note of hopefulness that I'm noticing in people is that I think actually this conversation that we're having now is one that more and more people are having, which is great. And I get asked by people all the time, like when someone commits to working with me on a web design project and they're beginning to write their copy, they're like, gosh, I'm just so nervous. Like, I don't want to be manipulative, but I know I have something great to offer. And what do I do? You know, and it's really hard because I think, especially running a small business or building one from scratch, we just have so few role models and we're operating with them within the system that's deeply flawed and fucked. And like, yeah, what do we do? And I think obviously in a way the internet is amazing in that it gives us tools and platforms to publish. So when I was starting out in my business, for example, I was mainly looking for paper books for sometimes because I really love reading offline sometimes. But all the material around starting a small business online that got kind of through this conventional publishing route really just was not speaking to me at all. So I'm so glad that we get to have these conversations in like other ways now. And also I think there is a responsibility in, I don't want to say the consumer because that's also like such a specific, really humanizing label for people. But what I mean is like the people that are receiving a message, I think, and I totally include myself, and I will give an example in a minute, are also having a responsibility to check in with their responses to different kinds of offerings and to just kind of check in on what we're prioritizing on social media, for example. So I see very clear patterns and trends in how much engagement I get on different kinds of posts, for example, and they're just certain trends, and I can teach them, like I can tell you what kind of image is going to do better on Instagram, but I kind of don't want to. I think I want to see what people have to share, and I sometimes want to see ugliness and real life and something that doesn't perfectly match a feed. And at the same time, I've recently committed to an offering that had been kind of on the market in air quotes for I think a couple of years now. And I've seen it in the corner of my eyes, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. That could be something for me. And I'm pretty sure at the core, it's always been the same thing. It's always been something I was interested in, but I hadn't made it a priority until the summer. And I did commit to it now because it was presented to me in a pretty different way. And I was just like, this is so interesting, because in my whole body, I feel more excited about it more now and more committed. And there's like a mental image in a way that has been created for me of what that could be like to participate. And I think that's, in a way, that's beautiful, because I know this is going to be great to have it. I'm okay with the money that I spend. I just think it's interesting. It's really, really interesting that we're also so tuned into going for the fancy, shiny things and kind of dismissing things that are kind of rejecting being in that race in the first place. So I'm thinking about like all the amazing blogs and books and, services and people out there that just kind of never had a chance to learn about or engage with branding in a positive, empowering way, and that get overlooked, and that's such a shame. This was kind of a ramble. Sorry. I don't even have like a conclusion here, but just wanted to share that.
No, yeah. I mean, you've brought up some really interesting points. Like, I remember a few years ago when I was kind of switching my way of marketing to something more ethical. Because I think most of us have played the game, right? And then like realized, oh wait, this actually isn't aligned with my values. So if not, maybe it was just me, but I'm pretty sure.
It was definitely me too. Definitely.
Okay, good. So, I was having this thing around scarcity. Like, a lot of times scarcity is fabricated, and it's, like, there's only 10 copies of this ebook, which makes no sense. Like, get yours right now, right? So there's false scarcity like that, which feels gross. And then there's like real scarcity, which is like, okay, I'm the only person running my business. I can only do like this many branding projects in, a quarter. Like, that's real. And so then that makes that scarcity okay to communicate, right? As long as I'm not like being gross about it. Like, as long as I'm not communicating it to try to manipulate someone, right? I'm just being honest. And I think the same kind of thing applies to branding. Like, if you do have something that is genuinely beautiful, like, make it beautiful and make it look beautiful. If you have something that is actually right for someone that you created with like a certain person in mind, then yeah, like, make it so that they know it's for them, right? That's so different than just like making whatever and being like, I need to sell it, so like let's make it look attractive. I think we can trust ourselves with branding and know that, like, just the fact that we're even asking these questions means we're probably okay. Right? Like, we're probably not doing any manipulative stuff, or if we do, we can catch it or be open to someone pointing it out. And but yeah, I'm all for things looking beautiful when they are actually beautiful, and for the people that they're beautiful for. I don't know. As a person of color, I also struggled with, just like actual, like, aesthetics in general, at least being, So I'm Mexican, and I go into a lot of Mexican restaurants, um and just I start like redoing the interior design, right? Like, how could we make this so much more beautiful so that it matches like just the beauty in the food and how it's prepared, and like all of that. And then I immediately like go back and think like, well, if we made it look like that, then would the actual audience feel safe and welcome here? Like, would me and my family feel safe and welcome here, or would we just like roll our eyes and be like, oh great, like this has been gentrified too, right? And so there's something real about that. And then I think there's also something real about like, we all deserve beautiful things though, right? Like we all deserve beautiful environments, and you know, whether that's like in person at a restaurant or online, on a website or a community, like we all deserve beautiful things. I think we should all have beautiful things. And so yeah, I'm like, we need beauty. Make everything beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. That's very true. I'm wondering if someone is listening to this and they're kind of interested in branding, what do you wish everyone knew about it? Because I think I also often see people just kind of wondering in the first place, like, what even is branding and why does it matter? And like, what do you think people knew about branding to be able to navigate the world of branding in a better way?
Yeah. I wish people knew that branding doesn't have to be all that serious. Like branding can be fun, and it can be experiments, and it can be playful. And you know, I think at least, and yeah, now like I'm getting like caught up in like, what is branding? So the way I'm referring to branding, I'm talking about like the visual aspect of it, right? There's branding that's about kind of like strategy and who are you reaching, who are you trying to reach, what are you about, and all of that. And sometimes that takes a while to figure out, right? The answers to all those bigger questions. And so the reason why I'm so excited about flexible branding is because it keeps everything super simple, so that as you figure out those answers, as they emerge for you, you can adjust your visuals to kind of like grow along with everything that you're discovering and growing. And so I wish people would relax about it. I see a lot of people just get so overwhelmed by it, or get stuck in branding, right? Like, I can't launch my business until like my logo is perfect. And like, it can actually just be simple, and it can be like stretchy so it grows with you. And yeah, and like you can just have fun with it and try things out, and trust that because it's all coming from you, it's gonna make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even as it's changing, it's gonna make sense because you make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I totally agree. I also see people get stuck on like feeling they're not quite ready yet because they haven't figured the logo out, or getting a bit tense in the process of like nearing the mood board that's going to be the winner and stuff. And I think it can be so fluid. Like, funny thing, I actually redesigned one of my websites today and just kind of went back to the drawing board with the branding. It was just what I felt like. It's the new moon today, and then eclipse, and I was just like, huh. And I think so. I have two businesses, and it just happens like once a year for each of them. And I'm cool with that. Like, I definitely understand there's value in consistency, and like there's this idea of like, if we just stick to the same thing for years and years, we're going to be known for that. But I think actually my business just evolves, and it is pretty dynamic, and I'm allowing myself the freedom to just change things. And usually it's just one or two colors, and then both of them also share two colors and the font. So like there is a bridge between those things, and it, you know, it feels like not a total clean break or something. But I think when you get support with your branding and you create a really solid foundation, there's so many ways in which you really can play with it, and that can feel so empowering. And I think tools that we have now, like canva.com, are making it so much easier for people to expand on, this groundwork that has been done for them, possibly by someone else, and create things for social media, offer new offerings, and to just play. Everyone, like you said, everyone deserves beauty and everyone can play with that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, my favorite thing about flexible branding is that, I'm basically like handing over a framework, because sometimes, right, like I think what's part of the overwhelming piece is like, you're like, where do I even start, right? There's like all these colors. I mean, all the colors, like, well, where do I start? I don't know how many fonts there are anymore, but I get how that's overwhelming. And so like, I love setting people up with like, just like a really basic style guide. And I'm trying to figure out what else to call it, because I don't like the word style guide. It feels still like too rigid to me. But just like really basic parameters, like, okay, this is your logo. These are some fonts you can start with. You don't have to stay with them forever. And like, this is like a collection of colors. And I usually create like color wheels for people rather than just like a color scheme. And like, go, like, play with it, figure it out. Cause I mean, like, I think my clients have created such cool stuff from that, right? Like, one of my favorites is one person I worked with realized during our branding process that they really loved vintage photos, and not just like super polished vintage photos, but like the silly vintage photos of like people jump roping or making weird faces, or like, they look like super done up, but they're like doing something unexpected. And, I was like, I noticed a lot of these photos and there's something about them that are so, so you. And they're like, you're right. Like, why don't I have those all over my website? So then I went back and like checked in on them, and now they're like all over their website, and it's so cool. So, I don't know. It's just like, just giving those like really, I don't know, giving a really expansive container where you can know like what your starting tools are, and just like, play and see what comes out of that.
Yeah, totally. I think I could talk to you forever. I was just saying the other day that this year I'm intending to kind of have people around for a second interview in the podcast, because I've had, not on this podcast so much, this one is pretty young, the DIY Small Business Podcast, but over on Daydream Walls, I had so many nice first interviews with people, and then like now feeling like, gosh, there's so much more actually, and I would love it if people could listen to the first episode as like an introduction, and then we can dive deeper into specific ones. So I would love to have you again. This was like a long-winded way of saying that. But before we go, I would love to let people know where they can find you. So like I already said, I think your blog is really awesome. Are there any other spaces that you enjoy being in, and where can we check you out?
Yeah. So I am exclusively on Instagram. That's like the only place really, aside from my website and my, what is it? I always forget what it is. Oh, I'm at _Lilly Garcia. And that's the place where I go and experiment with my brand. And so I have a lot of fun there. And I love connecting with people there too. So slide into my DMs, comment, like, I love talking to people, and then, my blog is there, and there's a lot more about flexible branding in there, and kind of breaking it down more with different examples of what it can look like. And so, those are kind of my two spots.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. And if people want to work with you, it seems like you're very open. Like I checked your website out and it feels very like, just like, come see how we can work together, but there's like no prescriptive framework for how this can work. So people can just get in touch with you, right?
Yeah, totally. And I'm super not salesy. So if you just want to talk and meet, like, I'm down for that too. I like connecting with people. And like, yeah, if there's a way that I can help out, then I'll ask you if you want to hear about it, and then we can talk about that. But yeah.
Great. Thank you. I'll add that in the show notes as well. So your links on Instagram, just in case someone got excited but didn't have a chance to write it down, it will be there as well. Lilly, thank you so, so much for talking to me. This was really cool. And I really hope that lots of people will listen and we can kind of demystify branding a little bit for everyone.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
Thank you.